All right, so I just got a call from my buddy Steve across the street. You guys know him. He's been in like 100 episodes, mechanic, greatest guy ever. And he said that he bought a truck for his dad and he needs some help on it. So we're gonna head across the street and see what he's up to. There's always something crazy going on with him. The light is smoking. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. More on this coming up. All right, so what do you got?
Got a Nissan for you.
This beast right here?
Yeah, my nephew got a new truck, and we're gonna surprise Dad and replace his old Isuzu with this thing. It's about 10 years newer, and I have the mechanical stuff done, but we need to make it safe. And he's got this dark window tint on it.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be able to see the mirrors, so we need to at least get that stripped off for him. And this will probably serve him pretty well for as long as he's going to be driving. He's
He doesn't know
83
yet,
now.
right?
He doesn't know
Ooh,
yet. So
all right.
It's going to be a big surprise.
Now I'm excited. This is pretty neat. And the cool part about this whole thing is he lives right there. So his truck's right there. He doesn't really know what's going on. This just came in. It needs a lot of work besides this too, but we're gonna clean it up whether you like it or not. I know there's rust on it, but we gotta make this pretty. Very cool. See you later.
You know how to get there?
I know how to get there. As I mentioned, Steve has helped in dozens of my episodes over the years, from the first ever video of heating up bolts on an old Suburban seat, or Steve's customer with a mouse-infested Subaru Forester, or his Uncle Ollie's van that needed its first wash and interior cleaning in over 10 years, plus a ton of other projects. Anyhow, Steve has always been there to help, so I'm happy to help him and his unsuspecting dad with this new/used truck. Aside from the tint and the foggy headlights, the paint is a perfect example of what clear coat looks like after years of the occasional mechanical car washes. There's lots of swirls and of course the spider web looking marks in the surface of the paint. Likewise, the rims have years of built up brake dust on top of years of built up brake dust. So that's embedded in the rims and they're not gonna come off with a basic wash. And of course, there's the rust. Not much that can be done here besides just slowing down the rate of deterioration. So we have a lot of work to do. All right, so right now we have the Frontier inside and under the lights. You can see scratches, swirls, dings, dents, and of course we have a ton of rust. We're gonna work on that later, but the main reason it's here is for safety. As you can see, when I get in here, this has 20 to 30% tint, right? And if I close, it's very hard to see me right now, and that's a big deal. Why? Because Mr. St. Jean, Steve's dad, is 84 years old, and it's, at this point, it's difficult to see, not only at night, but even during the day, and he can't see the mirrors. Now, the second thing is, if you look at the front, the headlights are all fogged out. So when the light is not projecting and you have tint, it becomes increasingly difficult to see, especially at 84 years old. So we're gonna work on that. Plus, I wanna make sure his tires have the proper date code. I'll show you how to do that. So we're gonna go through the step-by-step process for removing tint. Now, on a personal note, I can't believe I'm even saying this today. Ironically, not more than an hour ago, my own mother just got out of cataract surgery. Why? Because she was having trouble, amongst other things, driving at night. It's hard to see. So the fact that this all came at this particular time, so it's hitting a little bit more at home. So I want to make sure Mr. St. Jean is safe. And again, he is our street grandpa, and he's the best guy ever. So we're going to get this thing not only safe, we're going to get it cleaned up, and I think he's going to love it. For step one, window tint removal, I'm using a professional heat gun, long handle razor blade, and an adhesive remover. So window tint is similar to PPF in that it's a film that goes on the surface and has glue adhesion in between. Obviously this one's on glass and PPF would be on paint, but the same idea applies. Now this particular window has a frame, some are frameless, so you have to put the window down if you have a frame. There's multiple ways to do it, but the first way I'm gonna do it here, because it's 17 degrees outside, is I'm gonna introduce some heat. And the idea is to remove the film by heating up the glue. Now, if you fail to heat up the glue properly, when you remove it, so if I just pick this off right now and ripped it off, all the glue would be stuck to the glass, and it's a pain in the butt to remove, but you can do it because it's glass, meaning you can go in there with a razor blade, put some degreaser on there or some glue remover, and you can get it off. It's just a little bit on the tedious side. You couldn't do the same thing on PPF. That's why I used super hot water. You've seen me pour that on the paint. I can't do that here because it's the interior of a car, so we're using a heat gun. So I'm gonna heat it up, I'm gonna work the edge here, and you can notice that it goes right up to the edge, but not all the way. That's because it would get stuck inside the frame and it would peel. And the idea is just to take your time. The bottom line is this: there are a ton of ways to remove tint from glass. You can use heat guns, steam machines, plastic bag, what we call the greenhouse trick, and so on. But for the most part, on non-defroster line glass, I find it just quickest and simplest to just peel off the tint and then deal with the remaining glue using rapid remover and a long handle razor blade. Now, the only time you can't really use this technique is when you have defroster lines, typically on a rear windshield. So you're going to use the bag trick. You're going to create a sort of greenhouse effect, get a lot of heat into that tint, and then peel it off slowly without having the glue remaining on the glass, because otherwise you can't obviously scrape that because you're going to damage the defroster line. So because it's 17 degrees in my studio or outside, it just doesn't make any sense right now. Next, put the window up a bit, then remove the lowest part of the window film, being very careful not to rip it off on the inside of the window frame, because then it's just a pain in the butt to remove. So just take your time as you get on the lower parts of the window. So if you notice from the last window, there is a little bit less glue here, which indicates that that sort of greenhouse process that we did worked to some degree. It just couldn't overcome the fact that it's really, really cold in here. So a little hybrid method. The greenhouse effect really works well in the dead of summer. And the goal here is just to scoop. Look at all that. Next, it's time for its first proper wash in a very long time. So after the first wash, you can see it's better, but it's not perfect. Now, this is the definition of a wheel that hasn't ever probably been washed in its entire life. So we're gonna go in with round two. I'll hit it again with plum, but this time what we're gonna do is we're going to use 4/0 steel wool. Just gently go in, that's coming off already, and I'm just kind of shaving off that top brake dust that's just been sitting there for years. So it's just brake dust on top of brake dust on top of brake dust. And of course, with the heating cycle, the heating and cooling up, cooling down, heating up, cooling down, it just became more and more embedded. You can see already, it looks like it's brand new. So I'll spend some time going here and just gently with 4/0 steel wool, and you should be in good shape. It's really not gonna scratch the surface too much. Okay, at this point in the process, the car's been cleaned and it's still wet. What I'd like to do is use a lubricant, in this case, amyl hydrate, put it on a towel. It is very thick, rub it in. And the reason why we do this is we don't want to introduce more scratches onto the paint. Now, I know you're saying to yourself, Larry, this paint is absolutely destroyed, and that's a fair statement, but it is good to have good habits. You know, let's say you're working on a car like this, or a car that you absolutely love and it's in great shape, and you want to make sure that it stays in great shape during the wash. Hydrate's the way to go, because you do want to lubricate as you dry. After a quick compressed air dry, I focused on the grungy interior. All kidding aside, my goal is just to make this new truck safe for Grandpa St. Jean. We have the tints, the headlights, and the tires are the obvious fixes, but cleaning up the interior is usually not associated with passenger safety. Ironically, this is usually the most overlooked, yet quietly dangerous aspect of driving a used or dirty vehicle. Research indicates that trunks and driver's seats can harbor more bacteria than the average toilet seat. Likewise, interiors are fantastic breeding grounds for mold, dust, and allergens that become airborne from enclosed HVAC system, meaning when you turn on your heat or your air conditioning, leading to respiratory issues when inhaled while you're driving. So particularly in this case, detailing is not only to make the old truck look new and feel new, but to remove bacteria that could potentially stress an already sensitive immune system on senior citizens. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Now, whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to even time, all in one place, all on your terms. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layout and style options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. Squarespace makes checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools. Accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. You can also upload video content, organize your video library, and showcase your content on beautiful video pages. You can even sell access to your video library by adding a paywall to your content, which is pretty cool. Go to squarespace.com to get your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AMONYC to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Now, back to the frontier. Okay, now that I removed the film from the side window and you can actually see out of it, which is great, we're gonna kind of do the same concept here to the headlight. As you can see, it's faded, it's hazy, it's yellowing here, and that's oxidation. So oxidation is caused from the sun hitting this over months and years and just chewing up all the UV protection that's installed during the manufacturing process. So now that it's kind of looking like dead skin, or for lack of a better word, maybe a cataract sitting on top of the headlight, we have to remove it. There's multiple ways to do it, but generally speaking, there's sort of the DIY way and the professional side. The DIY you've seen on the internet, they use toothpaste, WD-40, and DEET. That is a quick way of doing it, but it's not really long-term, nor is the clarity where you kind of want to be, but in a pinch, it works. Now on the flip side, the proper way really to do it is to use sandpaper, but in that sort of genre of sandpaper, you can do it by hand, or you can do it like I'm going to do with a professional machine, so I don't have to sit there with my hand and rub. So I'm going to show you how to do that with a machine here and by hand over there. And the idea is you're going to get way more clarity by using sandpaper and sort of scraping away all that dead skin, and you're going to see, boom, it's going to pop out. It's going to look fantastic. After that, we have to then put a new UV coating on and more protection so that it doesn't do this again. So it's obviously critical to have the headlight shining lights properly now that he can actually see. So we're really making this truck way more safe than it was beforehand. First, tape up any surrounding exposed paint. Then I used 1500 grit sandpaper damp on a pneumatic palm sander. Notice the whitish yellow slurry. This is normal and desirable. This is the old dead UV protection now coming off the surface of the light. Next, wipe the slurry away and check your work. Do you need more cut, or can you move on to lighter sandpaper? In this case, we were good to go, so I proceeded to 3000 grit. Now, on a side note, if I hadn't run out of 2000 grit, I likely would have used that after the 1500, but I didn't have it, so we jumped to 3000. The goal here is just work with what you have. After the 3000 grit, I polished with a 3-inch shear wool cutting pad on a LHR 75 pneumatic. Afterwards, you can already see there's a huge difference just with the compound. Then, to get that last 5% clarity, I polish with a straight cut waffle foam pad and exfoliate polish, and you can see it looks fantastic. So to be clear, this is how I like to do headlight restoration, usually with 2000 grit as well. But you can see I go all the way through the compound and the polish stage to make it look perfect. On the other side, I'm doing a different technique. On the passenger headlight, I'm using the advanced, what they call DIY technique that requires no machines. Everything is done by hand. First, like we did on the other side, we're going to tape everything up. Then we're going to start with 2000 grit instead of the 1500 and hand block it. Work left to right and notice the yellow slurry once again. Clean off the area as it becomes all caked up with that yellow slurry, and then work up and down or the opposite direction for pass number 2. This opposite cutting, or what we call cross cutting, is designed to make it so that the finish is a little bit more refined when you're using one particular pad. In this case, you're using 2000 grit. So if you cross cut, it's going to make a little bit of a better, a more refined finish when you're done. Once again, clean the light and then switch to the 3000 grit pad and repeat the same exact steps. So at this particular point, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put that UV coating on the headlights. We're going to wait till after I polish the paint because I'll be, leaning on it and it's just going to be dusty and dirty. So once we're done with all the polishing and everything's good, then we're going to go in and put that UV protection on. For the paint, I'm using a simple one-step polish with a foam pad and exfoliate, and just kind of jumping to the wool pad in really isolated bad areas of the paint. Think of it more like prepping for the eventual coating application. I'm not really going in and trying to do a concourse detail for obvious reasons. Now, when it comes to the rust, There's really not a whole lot I can do at this point, but I wanted to prep the area with rust inhibitors first before I apply a coat of semi-permanent rust protection. Let me be super clear here. This needs to be cut out and replaced, and it needs to go to a body shop. I'm simply just prolonging its life and basically slowing the rate of oxidation to just delay the inevitable. While New Hampshire Oil's Rustoration is converting the rust and prepping for the oil coating, I added Reflex Pro 2 on the paint, as this truck is going to spend most of its life outdoors in Mr. St. Jean's driveway. But before we can do that, I wanted to make sure I did a quick ISO wipe down just to make sure there wasn't any leftover polish on the paint. Okay, now the paint coating is done, I'm gonna work on the headlight. And the reason I left it till now is I didn't want to get any dirt and grime on there. So first thing I did is hit it with isopropyl alcohol just before I put the paint coating on. Now I'm gonna do that little trick that I mentioned before. So 3000 grit, very, very light. I'm gonna go in and just gently put some scuffs in here. So remember, this has been cleaned already, and now it's scuffed. And you can see it's not as clear as it was before, but I am giving it a little bit of adhesion, things to grab onto when we put the next step on. So that's about all I'm gonna do. Back and forth. There we go. Okay, so now there's some light scratches in there if you can see it. I'm gonna take Frame Pro and I'm gonna apply this. But before I do, I'm actually gonna do one more wipe down with isopropyl alcohol. So here's my trick. We're gonna be using Frame on the headlight itself because it's so thick. I'm going to come in this direction here. And it has tremendous UV protection so that trim doesn't fade. But you can also put it on this plastic as well. And the idea is you don't want to go back and forth motions, just enough to coat and then allow it to level off. All right, make sure. Yeah, there you go. And now we're going to let that sit for a while and harden up. And you'll have that long-term UV protection that we're worried about, meaning that's what I sanded off that faded and oxidized. So now that looks 1,000 times better. The light penetration from the inside out is nearly 100%, and now you can actually see. We're going to do this on the other side that was left with 3000 grit as well. In my opinion, in this particular case, starting at a minimum of 1500 grit and also compounding and polishing just creates a better finished product than the passenger side sort of DIY by hand technique. You can really see the difference in clarity. But again, we're splitting hairs here. Both are more than acceptable techniques, but do what you can to just see better. That's really the only mission that I'm trying to impart here. Everything else in terms of clarity is just gravy. Next, I moved on to restoring the trim with that same Frame Pro wipe, and the difference was massive. Next, to match the fresh trim, I polished the metal bumpers with Flux metal polish by hand. Now, obviously, Flux or anything else isn't going to make the rust disappear, but at least the metal around the rust looks clean and shiny. Now, the third thing Steve and I wanted to do for his dad was to make sure that he had good rubber on the car. Totally makes sense. But most people look at the rubber and they say, hey, looks pretty good. There's another thing that you have to look at, and that of course is the date code. Now if you look here, this is not the right tire. In fact, this is a 918 tire. It means the world to me. This is the first 918 I've ever done. And you can see right here, there is a nail in it. So when I was detailing the car, I was looking at it going like, oh, I found a nail. And sure enough, we took it off and I got to keep it because it was the first one I've ever done. Anyhow, look here, it says DOT, and then after the DOT, there's a couple of numbers. The last circle here, you're gonna see 4213. 42 means that's the 42nd week of that year, and 13 is the 13th year, meaning 2013. So this here is 12 years old. I've had this for 12 years. The point being is when you're looking at the tires, it's not just about the tread depth, it's about how old it is. Typically, you wanna be about 5 to 6 years. The ones on his car now probably have about a year, year and a half left before they expire. So what we're gonna do is just put brand new tires on there. For now, we're gonna head over to Tom. I ordered a couple of Vredestein, and we're gonna put them on the car. Earlier in the week, I went over to Tom's to order the same tires I have on my Cayenne Overlander. The Pinza all-terrain, incredibly capable and quiet on the road. I absolutely love them. Tom and the boys at Ace took the old rubber off and replaced them with fresh Vredestein while I waited. If you're unfamiliar, Vredestein is a European tire brand over 100 years old that focuses on safety and design. Billy, what do you want to say to America? They're all watching you right now. Once I got back from Aces, I finished step 2 of my Mission Impossible, which is to slow down the rust process by adding New Hampshire Oil's Boss Wax over the prepped surface. It also happens to leave the surface black when we're done with it, so the truck's black, now that's black. It's protected, it looks a little bit better. I would call it a win-win. The only thing left to do is to surprise Steve's dad. What's going on, Pops?
How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you.
How's everything?
Good. A little chilly today, no?
A little chilly. Definitely chilly.
Let me take a look at this thing in here. How long you been driving this?
About 15 years.
Oh my gosh. You never leave home without a wrench, or...
Hey.
So, yeah, we got a little surprise for you inside. This man right here, your boy,
Yeah?
let's hook you up with a little something inside, but I want to show you first.
Oh, yeah?
And it's also 5 degrees, so let's go inside.
All right.
Come on in.
Okay.
Check out your new duds, buddy.
Woo.
That's all yours.
Incredible.
Isn't that cool?
Wow.
Look at the size of these monster truck tires now you got. So we took these off because you couldn't even see through it. I think it was like 20% or something like that. Then we polished everything out, and you can see the engine got all cleaned up.
Wow. Amazing. Holy cow.
Very, very clean. She runs great. But yeah, you got yourself a new winter truck.
Man, it looks great.
Thanks to your grandson and your son, and we just did a little polish here.
Family project.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Congratulations, my man. There you go.
Beautiful. This one goes 15 years. Somebody else is going to be driving.
All right. There you go. Another one on the road. That thing looks amazing, and more importantly, now it's safe. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.